Welcome, Everick. Feel free to just introduce yourself and explain who you are and what you do.
Yeah, my name is Everick Brown. I am the creative director of Everick Brown Design. We are an interior design firm based in New York. We cater to both commercial and residential, but we focus primarily on residential projects.
Nice. So take me, I can't remember exactly when we first chatted, but like take me through, if you can remember, like where you were at with your business.
Yeah.
You'd obviously built like a good amount of momentum and there was a lot obviously working, but take me through the challenge that led you to kind of to reach out.
To reach out. Yeah, I think it was April of 2020 to be exact. I don't remember the exact day, but we were at the height of, going into the shutdown of the pandemic. And one of the things I was learning is that I was non-essential. And I had never been told in my life as a business person or personally that I was non-essential. So I was like, oh, yeah, you don't understand. I am essential. And what I am is I will reinvent myself based on need. And so I started looking at different ways to improve my business. So, but every time I came up with something, they still said, you're non-essential. And so it made me dig in harder. At that point, my business was starting to shut down. Literally, we had active projects that went to zero. I could not convert any new projects at the time because, as I described it, people went into survival mode. They started hoarding and their focus was on, buying and saving food and finding a safe place to be. And less about renovation. So I stumbled upon one of your ads and thought, oh, this could be interesting. Let me see how I could rebrand or remessage my business. At the time, I thought I was pretty strong in what I was doing. Little did I know, thinking like an interior designer was sort of my Achilles heel. It literally is what was stopping me from advancing at the speed that I wanted to advance. So I had a 4.5-hour conversation with you, and I describe it as you interviewing me and me interviewing you because you were asking for a decent amount of money to coach me. And as I thought, I didn't really need any coaching. And you said something at the end of that conversation, which was really inspiring and that got me over the edge, which was you felt like I knew a lot about the business because I come out of fashion as a merchant. So I know profit and loss. I know top line, bottom line of business down to EBITDA. So your feeling was you couldn't teach me anything new. But the key words were you would help me prioritize what I knew, actually help me use what I know on a daily basis better to advance my business. And I was like, yes, that's it. And so I hired you and we engaged in business. And on the first day, your first challenge was, how are you different from all the other interior designers in your business? And I went, oh shit, I've wasted my money. I'm not that different from everybody else. We're all either traditional, updated, or modern. We all, love color and we all do the same thing. But as I really thought about the challenge, it was very interesting. There were some differentiators that I possess, starting with my team as a husband and wife team. And we had never really thought about it. We've been working together for 15 years plus. And didn't realize the dynamic that we had as a husband and wife team. So that was first and foremost. That then went to another level, which is something I had been doing for 20 years, which is working with divergent perspectives, something that I just get off on. I love when people have ideas or perspectives that are very different and you blend those to come up with the most elevated result. And so the challenge was, how am I different? I came up with the idea of marketing to couples. I came back home after a long walk and started Googling all interior design firms, architect firms, to see who was actually targeting and marketing to couples. And I couldn't find one. And so that's what I came back to you with, which is my differentiator is we talk to and market to couples. So blending their styles. She's traditional, he's modern. How do we take the two and elevate it? And the beauty of it is it's something I had been doing for 20 years. And so it was that focus that began to change the branding of my organization and the messaging.
Nice. And like we said, like it wasn't, from a knowledge standpoint, there wasn't much change, but it was, do you feel it was more like, what's the format to best take advantage of the intellectual property that I've been building up for so long?
Yeah, so there are a couple of great things that you really highlight and help prioritize. One and foremost, probably the number one priority is I'm an entrepreneur first. And what's really crazy about that is I was raised in an entrepreneurial environment. I had worked corporately 16 years. I had been an entrepreneur for 20 years. And it took you to say, hey, you're an entrepreneur first. And I was like, oh, wait a minute, you're right. I've been focused on being an interior designer. And then it just all just went downhill from there, meaning it just got easy. So once I started focusing on the business as a business person, then I could prioritize some of the key things I learned from you, like how do you bridge the customer's headache to solution? So rather than selling design process, we sell design solution. That really got me thinking in a totally different way. And as a result, it makes me act, talk, and brand in a different way, because most interior design firms market and talk to their client from a process perspective. So from the moment you land on my website, you already see we're not selling our portfolio, we're selling solutions. We sell what we do, we sell how we can help you.
Nice. That last point's like so massively important, because a lot of people think that they can just take their design skills and then how do I come up with a cool slogan or, you know, smartly market myself and change the verbiage. But the minute that you actually build a different product that moves beyond design, then all the marketing and the sales process has to be is look at what we've got that moves beyond design. And it's like there's nothing hyper complex about the way that you position yourself, other than the fact that this is who we help and this is the specific transformation that we help with, which is couples with divergent kind of ideas,
perspectives.
And now the offer that best suits them is completely different to the standard interior designer, isn't it? So you might have already, you've probably, I think you've already like pre-predicted what the next question is, but like, yeah, take me through, and you might have already covered it and feel free to recap, but like, what do you feel like the biggest aha moment has been in our engagement? Like,
so I think the biggest aha moment, let's see, in terms of engagement was, I think, you know, as I discussed it, it was really understanding that I was an entrepreneur first and then interior designer. What that means is, as I began to understand how I was different in the marketplace or different from my competitors, is I started to understand my own voice and how I spoke to my clients. So I actually did a lot of research. I had 20 years of research on who my clients are. And so I was able to come up with, you know, they own their homes, they own vacation homes, they travel several times a year. Their kids are more than likely to be in private schools. They play tennis, they do yoga, they golf. A large proportion of my clients drive Teslas. Like I've said a whole bunch of profile attributes, but I haven't said anything, but you already have the story of who my client is. And with that, I begin to look at, you know, what are my strengths? ROI, for example, is one of my strengths. And a lot of people will say, well, what the hell is that? Return on investment. And so somebody quite a few people say, you can't market to your client with ROI. And I go, actually, I can, because when I look at my 20-year profile, almost all of them understand ROI. And not only do they understand it, when they hear it, it piques their interest. And so that is a huge differentiator for me. And so the aha moment is sort of learning to speak in my own voice and walk in my own footsteps, and not be afraid of it. And like I said, what came about out of that was a language that's very specific to Everick Brown design.
Yeah, and would you say it's more kind of just what you see is what you get, instead of like just looking at your customer without even thinking about design, and it's just the problem, the solution, and the product that they need to get what they want, and design just happens to be one of the contributing tools in order to get there.
It absolutely. Listen, most recently I've had a couple of interviews and people are blown away that I don't start off with my number one priority is how beautiful a room is. Number one priority is coming up with the solution, right? It is, what is that client's headache and how do we solve it? That's number one. Number two is speaking their language. Once they understand, I understand their language, which is traditional, updated traditional, or modern, as I describe it. It's a style, right? I describe style as a language. Then the third part of it is we create a beautiful room for them. But it's first, how do we solve their problem? How do we communicate that we understand what their problem is and that we can solve it? And then voila, you have a beautiful room.
Nice. So based on like the shift in thinking and the positional changes, like take us through some of the changes that you've
Patrick,
seen.
I lost you a little bit. Can you start that question again? It went out.
Yeah, of course. So based on the shift in thinking and obviously the repositioning of not only who you are and what it is that you do and sell, like take me through some of the results and the changes that you've experienced in the way that the business model operates now.
Yeah, so the results are we're doing a lot more business, and we're doing, how would I describe it? The business is bigger, so it's a more qualitative business. So we had written out what our initiatives and goals were. And the goals were, how do we create larger wells, bigger projects, so we're not, doing a lot of busy work on smaller projects. So the biggest success is we have bigger projects. And so we're able to convert those larger projects easier, I think, due to the language or messaging that we've developed. The other thing is we're offering something that most firms don't, which is husband and wife. And what that means is you have 4 eyeballs as opposed to 2. You have 2 perspectives as opposed to 1. And all of those enhance the experience, particularly if it is a husband and wife, wife, husband situation. You have 2 people who can take sides with the 2 people you're working with. And so that works out super, super well in terms of distinguishing our brand. And I think has helped us convert a lot of potential projects into working projects.
Nice. So how is the kind of additional format of now how to take 20 years of experience and put it into a business model? Like, how does that change the way that you look at the business, like moving forwards?
All right, I missed the first part of what you said. Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, sure. So now, after everything that the transformation that you've gone through, how does that now change the way that you look at the business moving forwards?
So as I said, what has changed mostly is I'm always looking at what is the problem first, how am I solving it, how do I bridge those 2 sides so that the client understands what I'm saying. So every time I approach a new project, I'm looking at what is the biggest challenge, as opposed to, I already know I can make it beautiful. Not to sound arrogant, but that's what I do, right? But what I do that I think a lot of other people don't do is I convince the client that I understand what their challenge is and how I'm going to bridge to their solution. And so the biggest change for me is that I used to start off with, what's the color palette? What are the textures? What is the space in the room? Now I'm looking at, what are my biggest challenges and how do I connect the dots or create a bridge for the client so that they understand we can get them to solution efficiently, where they're getting the best return on their investment, where if they have a partner, we're helping them build a harmonious vision. It's kind of a tongue twister.
Totally. I wouldn't even try to attempt. I'm not even going to. But yeah, it's like, and I think we discuss this a lot, and it's something that continually comes up, especially for somebody that's like B2C, like you guys are, is that there's so much more that goes into the purchasing decision criteria for one of your clients outside of what they can see with their eyes. And to me, like, where your business model has massively improved is understanding that there's so many non-aesthetic biased decision principles that have to go into deciding whether you guys are the best investment or competitor XYZ are. And to me, it sounds like you've tapped into their hierarchy of needs, and you're just hitting each issue like a nail. And that's obviously, where you're starting to understand, this is where if we position around these things, then we're starting the conversation at the jugular instead of having to like massage people to thinking that we're a good fit, I suppose. So
yeah, and I'll tell you what's amazing, Patrick, is I very seldom discuss process. And it was one of the earlier conversations we had. You said, nobody cares about your process, Everick. They only want results. They really don't care. If you take your car to get it fixed, you don't really care what garage they went to or what tools they use, as long as the car is running efficiently and very well. And that really resonated with me in the sense of, you're absolutely right. Clients don't want to waste their time on what your process is. They just want to get from A to B. And they want the results that they want. And when you can connect A and B, it's yours. You literally are almost driving, what projects you want to take and which ones you don't. But it's a big difference. It's really hard, I think, to shift your mindset and how you think, because while we all know this business is client-centric, we don't always focus on those needs and those priorities, because we always start with, look how beautiful I can make a room. That's not client-centric. What's client-centric is understanding the client and making sure they understand you. And it's like I said earlier, it's really getting them to understand you get their challenges, right? And you have their back.
Nice. It's like, this way of thinking is a gateway drug. And I'm sure you would have been the same. And I was, when I was experiencing the growth in my own business as well. It's like, you hear the idea and you're like, oh, that's quite a few degrees off what has been told in the design industry, until you take a little bit of action and then you see the outcome of it. And then you're like, oh man, I might do a bit more of that, and a bit more and a bit more. And then all of a sudden, it's a gateway drug to being completely addicted to this new way of thinking. And I mean, you can just tell in people's language that like you've obviously massively shifted. But yeah, thank you, Everick, for the input.
It really is amazing. You'd be amazed that even in interviews, Patrick, how my response is very different, because we have, a corporate vocabulary. As I said to you, all the work we did up front to kind of prepare and get to where we are now was a lot of work. But when I go back and look at it, I'm like, this is brilliant. Like, I can't believe I did all this work and came up with it, because it's really sort of cultivating and excavating for what are the client's headaches and what do we do to solve them? How do we solve them? What language do we convince them in that we solve it and that we speak with a point of view that's different than everybody else? All that comes out of the research and the results that, you know, are really helpful as I've hired a social media person, as I've hired, you know, our designers and renderers. All I do is send them out, you know, this information, and they already get the vocabulary, the messaging, the vision of Everick Brown design.
Nice. Yeah. Well, thank you for the insight and the kind of the story of like your transformation, Everick. But yeah, pleasure chatting, and yeah, thanks for your time.
Yeah, always. Always. I can't say enough. Thank you.